Between the 11th and 13th centuries, a secret group of assassins carried out numerous hits on prominent figures along much of the Levant and Persia. These Nizari Ismaili assassins carried out hits on people ranging from Fatimids, Abbasids, Seljuks, and Christian Crusaders. Ultimately, their legacy would influence both popular culture, with their appropriation in the Assassin's Creed franchise, all the way down to the word assassination. Let's get straight into it. To understand the order of assassins, we must first talk about both Ismailism and Hassani Saba. Ismailism is a branch of Shia Islam that follows Ismail ibn Jafar as the rightful Imam after Jafar al-Sadiq, which is what it splits from Twelver Shiism. Ismailis believe in a continuous line of living Imams rather than the idea that the final Imam is hidden. They also believe that the Imam is seen as a spiritual guide, not just a legal or political leader. Finally, they believe in a strong emphasis on an esoteric interpretation of the Quran, which supports inner or symbolic meanings in addition to the literal text. Now that we're familiar with Ismailism, we can discuss Hassani Saba. Hassani Saba was born around 1050 in Qom, located in the Seljuk Empire. His family were Twelver Shias, which was the minority within the Sunni majority Seljuk Empire. Shortly after Hassan's birth, his family moved to Ray. It was here that Hassan, at the age of 17, converted to Islam and swore himself to the Fatimid Caliphate, and Ismaili state centered in Cairo. Hassan left Ray and headed to Cairo in 1076. He arrived 2 years later and stayed in Egypt for 3 years, where he continued his studies. Unfortunately, while in Egypt, he incurred the wrath of the chief of army. He had Hassan briefly imprisoned before releasing him. Following his release, he went to Syria. From Syria, he traveled to Isfahan, where he arrived in 1081. But at this point, Hassan had dedicated his life to the Ismaili movement as a missionary. He extensively toured Persia, where he stumbled upon northern Persia. Here, the local people both resisted foreign subjugation and were a center of Shia learning. However, there's just one issue. This hotbed of Shia activity attracted the attention of the Seljuk vizier, Nizam al-Mulk, who dispatched soldiers to arrest Hassan. This caused him to retreat into the region's mountains. Now, if there's one thing that Hassan realized, is that he would need a base of operations. But where would he even locate it? Well, in 1088, Hassani Saba found an ideal base for the Order of Assassins, Alamut Castle. Hassan infiltrated the castle and captured it for his organization, and from 1090 onwards, the Order of Assassins would have a definitive base. Soon after establishing himself at Alamut, both the Seljuk Sultan, Malik Shah I, and his vizier immediately launched an attack on the castle. However, this assault was unsuccessful. Thankfully for Hassan, these attacks would slow down in 1092 following the deaths of both Malik Shah I and Nizam al-Mulk. I'm going to briefly interrupt this chronology to talk about the Ismaili schism that happened around this time. You see, after the death of Fatimid Caliph al-Mustansir in 1094, the Fatimid vizier decided to, instead of appointing the late caliph's oldest son Nizar, appoint his other son al-Mustali as the next imam. Nizar was soon imprisoned and killed, which caused a huge rift in the community. Hassani Saba took Nizar's side and cut off ties with the Fatimids, creating the Nizari branch of Ismailism. Now, back to the chronology. In 1096, the order expanded into the castles of Rudkhan and Gurdko, and later, sometime between 1096 and 1102, captured Lamsar Castle. In 1097, the Order of Assassins, who had at this point expanded into Khuzestan, assassinated Seljuk military figure Bursuk the Elder near Sarkas. The Order of Assassins had well entrenched themselves in Seljuk society, but with Sultan Burkayuk's consolidation of power in 1100, they began to infiltrate the Seljuk court and army. In 1101, Burkayuk ordered his brother Ahmad Sanjar to attack the Order's castles in Khuzestan. They were initially successful, however, he eventually negotiated with the Order and ended its attacks. With their operations secure, they continued their operations against many religious and secular rulers. Ultimately, due to the success, they decided to expand their operations, this time somewhere more exotic, the Levant. The Order of Assassins first sent al-Hakim al-Munajim to the region, where he established the Order's first contacts in Aleppo in the early 12th century. He soon allied with this emir, Fakhr al-Mulk Ridwan. This alliance was first seen in the assassination of Jannah ad-Dawla, the emir of Homs, who, in 1103, was killed in the city's great mosque of al-Nuri. Al-Hakim died a few weeks later and was succeeded by Abu Tahir al-Saig. 3 years later, Ridwan, Abu Tahir, and the Qadi of Sarmin, Abu Fath, all conspired to murder Khalaf ibn Mulayib and seize Apamea. They successfully pulled off the job, and Ridwan became the overlord of Apamea and its fortress Qala al-Madik, with Abu Fath becoming the city's emir. Unfortunately for them, one of Khalaf's surviving sons escaped and with the Tancred of Galilee, who brought an army and captured the city, handing it over to the Principality of Antioch. Abul Fath was tortured to death, and Abu Tahir ransomed himself and returned to Aleppo. Ridwan died in 1113 and was succeeded by his son Alp Arslan al-Akras, who initially continued working with the Order of Assassins. However, in that same year, due to pressure from Muhammad I Tapar, the Sultan of the Seljuk Empire, Aleppo's military commander, Sa'id ibn Badi, expelled the order from the city. Many of them took refuge with the Munkidites in Shaizar. I'm going to briefly interrupt this Levantine segment to talk about Hassan's political actions in Persia following the death of Muhammad I Tapar. Following his death, Ahmad Sanjar became the Sultan of the Seljuk Empire. Immediately upon his ascension, Hassan sent ambassadors to strike a peace between the Order of Assassins and the Seljuk Empire. However, when the Seljuks rejected this peace offer, the Order of Assassins did something a little unorthodox. One morning, Ahmad Sanjar woke up to a dagger struck on the ground beside his bed. Soon after this, Hassan sent a messenger to the Seljuks, who said, "Did it not wish the Sultan well that the dagger which is struck in the hard ground would have been planted on your sovereign breast?" Following this, the Seljuks ensured peace between the factions. Now, with this out of the way, we can return to the Levant. In 1120, the Order of Assassins, who had re-established their influence in Aleppo, demanded that its ruler, El-Ghazi, grant them the citadel of Qala ash-Sharif. El-Ghazi refused and had it destroyed. Ultimately, the Order of Assassins was expelled from Aleppo in 1124 by Belik Ghazi, the successor to Il-Ghazi. Interestingly, in between all of this, in 1121, the Order of Assassins killed Fatimid Vizier Al-Afdal Shahanshah. He was actually responsible for the events that led to the Ismaili Schism. The Fatimids and the Order of Assassins attempted to reconcile, but ultimately this came to no avail. The Order of Assassins was doing well, but now it needed to address its biggest issue at the moment: succession. Hassani Saba died in 1124 and was succeeded by Kia Buzurgulmid. Believing the Order of Assassins to be weakened, Mu'in Kashi, Ahmad Sanjar's vizier, launched an invasion into the Order's holdings in Khuzestan, Nishapur, and Rudbar in 1126. Initially, these attacks were successful. However, the Seljuks were eventually routed, and, under the guise of a peace offering, the Order of Assassins successfully killed the vizier in 1127. Ultimately, the Order responded to these attacks by constructing a more powerful fortress at Rudbar and, in 1129, raiding the Seljuk stronghold of Sistan. In that same year, Seljuk Sultan Mahmud II attempted to sue for peace with the Order of Assassins. However, the Nizari envoys were killed by a mob following their meeting with the Sultan, and the Sultan failed to punish the crowd, so the Order of Assassins attacked the Seljuk city of Qazvin. While all of this was happening in Persia, the Order of Assassins remained proactive in the Levant. In 1125, following their expulsion from Aleppo, Nizari missionary Bahram al-Dai went to Damascus, which is under the control of the Bur dynasty, to establish a Nizari base of operations. Around this time, the Kingdom of Jerusalem was threatening Damascus, so the Order of Assassins decided to help the Birds at the Battle of Marj al-Safar in 1126. This was a victory for them, as it was both a military victory for both parties, and it saw the Bur-Nizari alliance bloom, which eventually culminated in the acquisition of the fortress of Banias. By 1128, the Order of Assassins were so hated that when Bahram was killed in that year, the messenger who delivered his head and hands to Cairo was rewarded with the robe of honor. Bahram was succeeded by Ismail al-Ajami. Toktakin, the ruler of Damascus, also died that year, and his successor, Taj al-Muluk Buri, began working to free the city from the Order of Assassins. In 1129, Damascus turned on the Order of Assassins, killing 6,000 of their members and forcing the rest of them to flee to Crusader territory. The next year, Ismail al-Ajami was killed, and for a while, the Order's presence in the Levant was non-existent. The Order of Assassins didn't ignore this, and in 1131, they organized a counterattack, successfully assassinating Buri. In 1131, Mahmud II died, and he was succeeded by his brother, Giyad ad-Din Masud. Now, this was important because the Abbasid Caliph, al-Mustarshid, recognized him as Mahmud II's successor. Despite this, his succession was contested by Mahmud's sons and other brothers, who captured and imprisoned the Caliph in 1135. The Caliph was then released on the condition that he abdicate. Once he was freed, he was murdered by a large group of assassins, a moment that was widely celebrated among the Ismaili community. Kia Buzurgumid would die in 1138 and would be succeeded by his son, Muhammad ibn Buzurgumid. Around the start of his reign, he oversaw the assassination of al-Rashid Billah, the son of the recently assassinated al-Mustarshid. Around this time, the Order of Assassins' position in the Levant was increasing. In 1133, Saif al-Mulk ibn Amrun, the emir of Al-Kaf, sold the fortress of Al-Qadmus to the Order of Assassins. His son would later cede the Al-Kaf castle itself to the Order of Assassins in 1138. In addition to these castles, the Order of Assassins would capture Massif Castle in 1140 and Kawabi Castle in 1141. In 1149, assassin Ali ibn Wafa allied with Raymond of Poitiers, the Prince of Antioch, to defend its borders against the Zengid dynasty. They met up at the Battle of Anab and were slowly defeated, with both Raymond and Ali dying in combat. In that same year, the Order assassinated Dahak ibn Jandal, the man who killed Bahram al-Dai, and, in 1152, killed Raymond II of Tripoli. He was the first Christian victim of the Order of Assassins. Eventually, Muhammad ibn Buzurgumid died in 1162. Hassan II succeeded Muhammad ibn Buzurgumid. 2 years into his reign, he proclaimed the Qiyamah, in which he essentially abolished many important Islamic laws, specifically the Salah, fasting in Ramadan, the Hajj to Mecca, and the facing of oneself toward Mecca in prayer. This upset many within the ranks of the order, and so, in 1166, he was assassinated by his own people. Now, despite being quickly replaced, he was able to dispatch one man to the Levant, Rashid ad-Din Sinan, better known as the Old Man of the Mountain. Sinan was sent to the Levant in 1162, where he set up his base of operations at Al-Kaf Castle. After spending 7 years operating from Al-Kaf Castle, he assumed de facto independence from the headquarters at Alamut Castle. He would soon relocate his base of operations to Massif Castle. One of his first actions was the capture of Alika Castle. Now, Sinan's main concern was the threat posed by Nur al-Din Zengi. Thus, he sought out an alliance with King Emmerich I of Jerusalem. However, while returning from these negotiations, the Order of Assassins' envoys were killed by Templar Knights, a move sanctioned by Templar Grandmaster Otto de Saint-Amand. Emmerich demanded that Otto surrender the knights who killed the envoys, but he refused. Thus, he had him kidnapped and imprisoned at Tyre. Sinan soon forgave the king for Otto's actions. However, this alliance failed to materialize because soon after this, both Nur al-Din Zengi and King Emmerich I would die. Now, while these developments were terrible for Sinan, they were conversely amazing for Saladin, the ruler of the Ayyubid Sultanate, who steamrolled into the Levant, capturing Damascus in 1174 and swiftly moving against Aleppo. While besieging Aleppo in early 1175, Saladin's camp was assaulted by assassins, although he managed to avoid death. Assassins would later confront him on May 22, 1176 during the siege of Hizaz, this time successfully wounding him. In August 1176, Saladin turned his attention to the Order of Assassins and besieged their headquarters at Massif Castle. However, he soon withdrew the siege due to uncertain circumstances. Entering the 1190s, we see the beginning of the Third Crusade. By now, the Kingdom of Jerusalem had been reduced to just the city of Tyre. Tyre was ruled by Conrad of Montferrat, who had become the king by his marriage to Isabella I of Jerusalem. The Order of Assassins had infiltrated the bishopric of Tyre and, in 1192, assassinated Conrad of Montferrat. Now, the assassin who killed Conrad claimed that Richard the Lionheart was the instigator of this murder. Now, in December of 1192, while traveling home for the Third Crusade, Richard was captured by Duke Leopold V of Austria and was accused of murder. Interestingly, according to some historians, Sinan wrote to the Duke in order to absolve Richard of his crimes. Nevertheless, Rashid ad-Din Sinan died in 1193, and the Old Man on the Mountain was no more. In 1210, the Order of Assassins was succeeded by Hassan III. Now, unlike every other Order of Assassins ruler, he embraced Sunni Islam and actually allied himself with the Abbasid Caliph al-Nasir. In addition, the Order's stronghold at Abu Qubays became his tributary to the Knights Hospitaller. In 1213, the Order of Assassins murdered Raymond of Antioch. His father, Bohemond IV, allied with the Knights Templar and besieged Kawabi Castle. The Order of Assassins appealed to the Ayyubids for help, and by 1216, the Crusaders had ended the siege. In the Levant, Majd ad-Din had become the new ruler of the Order's holdings in 1220. During this time, the Sultanate of Rum actively paid tribute to the Order of Assassins in Persia. However, by the end of the year, Hassan III had approved of a decision to make the Sultanate pay tribute to the Order of Assassins in the Levant. Hassan III died in 1221 and was succeeded by his son, Muhammad III. Now, Muhammad was 9 years old upon his ascension, so his father's vizier became his regent. During his reign, Muhammad III saw the reversal of the Sunni ways his father had set, and a return to the Nizari Ismaili way of life. In 1225, Holy Roman Emperor Friedrich II married Isabella II of Jerusalem in order to push for a Sixth Crusade. The next year, he sent envoys to Majd ad-Din in order to secure safe passage to Jerusalem. This mission would fail as the Holy Roman Emperor would fall ill in 1227. Also in 1227 was the succession of Siraj ad-Din Muzaffar in the Levant. He would rule there until 1239, when he was replaced by Taj ad-Din. Taj ad-Din ruled in the Levant until 1249, when he was replaced by Radi ad-Din. In that same year, as part of the Seventh Crusade, French King Louis IX captured the port of Damietta. However, the next year, he was defeated and captured at the Battle of Mansoura. Following his release, he spent 4 years in the Kingdom of Jerusalem. It was here at Acre, the kingdom's capital, where he received an envoy from the Order of Assassins. But aside from this, the Egyptian victory at the Battle of Mansoura led to the establishment of the Mamluk Sultanate. Muhammad III died in 1255 and was succeeded by Najm ad-Din in the Levant and Rukn al-Din Kursha in Persia. While all of this was happening, the order was dealing with its killing blow, the Mongols. The Mongols began their campaign against the Order of Assassins in 1253, capturing numerous fortresses in Kohistan and besieging their main fortress of Gerdku. In 1256, the Mongols captured the fortress of Maimun Diz, which saw Rukn al-Din surrender to the Mongols. He was put to death, and in that same year, Alama Castle surrendered to the Mongols, marking the order's end in Persia. The situation wasn't any better in the Levant, as Massive Castle fell in 1267. With their loss, the order was forced to join with other Muslim groups, most notably the Mamluk Sultanate. In 1270, Mamluk Sultan Baibars took control of the Order of Assassins, and in that same year, he had Philip of Montfort killed. He would be the order's last victim. Baibars attempted to assassinate Edward Longshanks of England. However, he survived this assassination attempt. Despite this, he still chose to call off the Ninth Crusade. In 1275, the Order of Assassins managed to briefly regain control of Alama Castle, but it was soon taken back by the Mongols, finally leading to the Order's end. So, in conclusion, the Order of Assassins, while ultimately succumbing to the Mongol hordes, played an important role in world history. Their influence was seen both during their existence and in the modern age. During their existence, they murdered many influential world leaders and figureheads, ultimately influencing the realms. While tainted by Ubisoft's current reputation, the Order of Assassins continues to survive in modern culture via the Assassin's Creed franchise, which, to be fair, is a better legacy than some of the other shits I've talked about on this channel.